Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. So today marks the 218th straight day that we have produced a podcast here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show. And in my opinion, that is the only way to properly cover this case. You can't look at one piece of information from this case and think that you know what's going on. This is the kind of case where you need to look at everything in context, and the only way to properly do that is to catalog these stories on a daily basis. So it's like a book basically for us at this point, and each day we just wait for another chapter to be released. So that's why we cover it the way we do here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show, because it's like a book. And each article is a new chapter in that book, and we're going to be here until the completion. Now, on this morning's episode, we're going to stick with the Harvard angle, and we're going to go over an editorial that was released by the Harvard Crimson, which is the school paper. And in this article, they're discussing the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Harvard. So, the headline: What Harvard Sold Jeffrey Epstein? It was the author of the article, like I said, was the editorial board for the Crimson. So it is the majority view of the Crimson Editorial Board that we're going to read in this article. In February 2006, financier, pedophile, Jeffrey E. Epstein applied to renew his visiting fellow status at Harvard. Epstein, a prominent Harvard donor with no educational qualifications for the psychology fellowship he sought renewal for, argued that he wanted to continue his studies on power, reputation, and deception. The application was approved. Then, months before class started, he was asked to withdraw, though not without a full refund. The would-be fellow had been charged for sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl. His complete estrangement from Harvard appeared imminent and unavoidable. But it wasn't. And we heard from Professor DeLay about the same thing, about how Epstein has no business having being involved in a study like this. He doesn't have the educational prowess for it. He doesn't have the degrees for it. And yet, here we are, Harvard making him a fellow, Harvard reaching out a hand to him, Harvard enabling Jeffrey Epstein at every single turn. I have to tell you, folks, no judge should hear this case if they come from Harvard. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel about this at this point. It's an absolute joke. Over a decade later, after yet another set of sex offense charges and Epstein's death in jail, a review of the university's ties to the disgraced financier, pedophile, reveals the extent to which our institution was actively complicit in Epstein's pattern of abuse. It betrays the influence of power, reputation, and wealth even within academic institutions that profess to be committed to truth and the nurturing of young people. Yeah, for sure. You have an institution like Harvard, you expect excellence in every quadrant, okay? If I send my child to Harvard and I pay that kind of money, and I find out that Jeffrey Epstein has an office there, I'm coming into the dean's office, I'm kicking in the door, and we're going to have some serious words. This dude is a predator who made it his business to pick up girls that were college-aged, freshman-aged, and younger. And you mean to tell me that it's a good idea to have this guy on property, on campus, and nobody's going to stand up and say, what the hell is going on here? That, my friend, is institutional corruption. By 2011, Epstein registered as a sex offender in New York, deemed to pose a high risk of repeat offense and a threat to public safety. His widely criticized plea deal allowed him to serve just 13 months in prison under lax conditions, but the nature of his depravity was widely known since at least 2006. And before that. I'll even go a step further and say before that. From all of the research that I've done, Jeffrey Epstein has always had these proclivities. He always had them. And we can go back to the 80s where there was talk about it. So for people to jump around and act like they didn't know what Jeffrey Epstein was, what he was up to, and the type of scumbaggery that was occurring, well, those people, I'll just say it right here since the media doesn't want to say it ever. You're a bunch of liars. All of you are a bunch of liars. Yet between 2010 and 2018, Epstein enjoyed a privileged position at Harvard. He held the keys to a private office on campus, complete with a Harvard University phone line, where he had meetings set up with Harvard academics upon his request. In 2014, following a request made by Epstein's publicist to boost his image, Epstein was granted his own page on Harvard's Program for Evolutionary Dynamics website. A link was also set up to Epstein's foundation website, which featured fraudulent claims about his philanthropy. He visited our institution over 40 times, and as recently as 2018, frequently accompanied by female assistants who appeared to be in their 20s and sat in on at least one undergraduate class. All while, Epstein's serial sexual abuse of minors, most of whom were 13 to 16 years of age, was public knowledge. And yet, Jeffrey Epstein is still at this campus. He still maintains an office there. He is still invited back, and he is still treated like one of the guys, huh? Isn't that nice? Harvard, you are a disgusting disgrace of a university. The university has placed mathematics and biology professor Martin A. Nowak, head of the program for evolutionary dynamics, on administrative leave. Rightly so. Novak facilitated much of Epstein's association with the university, but he was hardly alone, 100%. Now, don't get me wrong, Nowak definitely holds a lot of the responsibility here. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, we're going to let Bacow off, we're going to let the trustees off, we're going to let board members off, we're going to let other people off who knew what the deal was? Not here, not on this podcast. Everybody's getting it here on the podcast. Everybody who is involved. I'm talking, this is a straight up carpet bombing now, okay? Enough is enough with these people. Enough with the hiding. Enough with the pussyfooting around. Enough with not calling people out because you're scared to lose access. It is time to stop messing around. A particularly revealing footnote in the university's report concedes that several faculty members traveled in Epstein's planes and visited him while he was serving time in jail. Imagine that, huh? These professors are so disgusting. They're so gross that not only were they hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein after his arrest, but while he was in jail, they were visiting him. Like they were, old buddies from the old school. Now, why in the world would anyone go and visit a man like Jeffrey Epstein? It's gross. It's disgusting to think about. It's disgusting to think that these people got away with it for so long, and it's really disgusting to think that the Harvard Board of Trustees and the president of the university is trying to punt responsibility here and blame just the professors when it was obviously institutionalized. Harvard has a lot to answer for, folks, a whole lot to answer for. More concerningly, the report specifically references faculty visits to Epstein's private enclave in the Virgin Islands, which has been credibly accused of harboring the trafficking and abuse of girls as young as 11 until 2018. Not only there, oh no, I'll help you out a little bit here, Crimson Editorial. They also love to go to Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. The one by the Santa Fe Institute, the one by Los Alamitos, all of that stuff, right? Yeah, that's where they like to go as well. Not just the island. Oh no, the vast wasteland of New Mexico was also a preferred destination for these people. While Harvard professors can interact with whomever they please, pursuing such trips suggests, at the very least, an extremely concerning lapse in basic moral judgment, and we should judge them accordingly. That's what I've been saying from the very beginning on this podcast. That's what we've been doing here on the podcast, right? There are different levels to the people who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. We have the enablers. We have the people that were involved. We have the hanger-ons, et cetera, and it goes on and on and on and on. But these people must be judged for their role. They must be spoken about in the legacy media. And I'll tell you what, folks, there is zero chance I would pony up 1 single cent for my child to go to Harvard. Zero chance. Relegating that information to a footnote reveals the extent to which Harvard has not only failed to mount sufficient moral criticism, but perhaps failed to acknowledge the significance of these relationships. For sure. That's definitely a fact as well. Harvard has been completely complicit in this whole entire thing. From the very beginning, they have been facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's behavior, they have been enabling it, and they have been giving their stamp of approval to it. Just let that ruminate for a second there, folks, okay? Harvard gave him an office, gave him credibility, and let him roam that campus with all of those girls around. On what planet is that okay? So why was a convicted sex offender allowed to parade around on campus? Why did so many of our faculty indulge him? The answer is depressingly predictable. Money. Epstein leveraged his financial contributions to gain access and influence among Harvard faculty members. The philanthropic sex offender donated over $9 million to university programs, including over $700,000 after his arrest in 2006. That amount bought him access to prominent professors, Harvard relationships that would survive his convictions, and an unearned fellowship. And again, I'll refer back to the letter from Professor DeLay, and you can see why he was so fired up in that letter. You know, these guys work hard, right? These scholars, they're the real ones, the real academics that put their all into this since they were children, just like athletes, by the way, folks. Let me tell you, to become a professor and a scientist at this level, you must be committed to what you do. And it's a slap in the face for people who really worked hard to get those fellowships and whatnot, for someone like Jeffrey Epstein to stroll in and buy one. It is so disrespectful to the people who put in the hard work. The Epstein report reveals that Harvard served as a powerful platform for a sex offender to pay for a reputation retouch. And the willingness to do so wasn't limited to Professor Nowak. A culture of complicity pervaded, from Harvard staff who continued to invite Epstein to university events to Harvard faculty such as math department chair Benedict H. Dick Gross, 71 years old, who considered it ideal to continue to seek Epstein's money, all years after Epstein's pedophilia was known. Punishing Nowak is certainly necessary, but pretending that he was the only source of the problem is nothing but a deflection of responsibility. And they are spot on here with this article, folks, this editorial from the Harvard Crimson. This is good work by them. This is solid stuff, because at the end of the day, it's all about having somebody take some responsibility here. And that has to be the president of Harvard and the board and the trustees and everybody that was involved, because this is just so unacceptable. And we knew it was bad at Harvard, right? We knew that things were not right there, and we knew that Epstein had a lot of influence at Harvard. But now that we see what we've saw, and we've seen the report that they've done, and believe me, I know that it left a lot out. I don't believe in in-house reports. You guys all know how I feel about that garbage. But from the little bit that we've seen, we know that the problem is much worse, and we know that it's an institutionalized problem at Harvard at this point. So Harvard has a lot of questions to answer, and to be honest with you, if I'm the prosecutor prosecuting this case, I might even think about indicting some of these people under RICO statutes to see just exactly what their financial ties were to Jeffrey Epstein and his criminal organization. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, folks, we'll be back later on with the Daily Drop. I hope you all have an amazing afternoon.